People, the time is here for another episode in my community made series. With my community series, I put a community post up on my channel and I ask you guys if you have any ideas about something. This is going to be the third video where we talk about heirloom ideas slash concepts. Also in this video, we're going to go over some really cool 3D model heirloom concepts that I found over on Reddit. This is a highly requested video, and with the Mirage heirloom almost here, this is the perfect time to embrace the heirloom hype train. So without further delay, I'm Alarmix, and let's get into the video. So the first concept that we're going to talk about, this is one from over on Reddit. This guy, his name is Ahmed Fludge. He does some excellent work on his Reddit page. I'll make sure to link him in the description. He calls it the Watson Static Defender. As you can quite obviously tell, this thing looks absolutely amazing. The graphics on this thing are so well done. This is basically a Watson lightsaber. Like, if they're going to put some sort of lightsaber thing into Apex Legends, this is the way they would do it. I don't know how it would work with heirlooms and them being long like this. I'm guessing it would have to be a little bit shorter, but we learned with the Mirage heirloom, it doesn't have to be a real weapon. Respawn is totally okay experimenting with different kinds of heirlooms. It doesn't just have to be a miniature weapon. Through my time doing these videos, I've seen so many great Watson concepts, but this just about tops it. Up next, we have an idea from the comment section of my previous heirloom ideas video. In that video, I said, if I ever do a video like this in the future, I'm gonna use comments from that video in this video. I'm gonna do the same thing with this video. If I ever do another heirloom ideas video, I'm going to use people's ideas from the comments of this video. So make sure to comment an heirloom idea in the comment section if you want a chance at being in one of my videos. But Tomato said for Revenant, they should have his knife hand. I think that would be really cool. So in the Apex Legends Season 4 simulation launch trailer, Revenant actually turns his hand into a knife, as I'm sure you saw. So us, before Revenant was actually released, I think some of us were questioning if this will be one of his abilities. I think maybe there's just a small chance that this was actually Respawn sort of teasing Revenant's heirloom coming to the future of Apex. I think that would actually work out super well in game to have his hand turned into a knife. You know, he could be holding his gun as always, but when he goes for the melee, you could have some really sweet hand swapping to knife animation. When I was looking at the comments of the community post for this video, I saw so many different Revenant suggestions. So if your idea isn't in this video, or if you see an idea that's kind of a duplicate of yours, just know that there are so many suggestions, and I still saw your comment. I still read through all of the comments on that community post. But having Revenant's hand almost be a little bit of a transformer to where you can turn it into a knife and maybe turn it into something else just for a cool animation while you're running around. Like, could you imagine? That'd be epic. So moving on to an idea for Bangalore's heirloom. So a lot of people were saying that, you know, Bangalore should just have some sort of combat knife, but you know, with Wraith's kunai, we kind of need something a little bit more interesting than a combat knife in my opinion. So Anadan Pichumani, this person said Bangalore's heirloom idea, basically a karambit from CSGO. So I'm not gonna lie, I really have not played CSGO before because I've been a console gamer for most of my life, and now I just recently swapped to PC. But something that's kind of cool about the karambit, it turns out that this was originally used in 11th century Indonesia, and then people in 11th century Indonesia, they only used the karambit for things like farming and household chores. They didn't really use it for like killing people or anything. But because of Indonesia's whole trading that they had going on at that time, the karambit quickly became used all around the world. And apparently the karambit, when you're being attacked by one, it's super hard to counter because of the shape of the blade. And as you guys can tell from this picture of the karambit, this thing can do a lot of damage. So I think it'd be really cool to see Bangalore running around with this karambit, or maybe they will think about something over at Respawn that isn't a knife. So the very talented person that made that first concept we talked about, that Watson lightsaber looking thing, we're gonna talk about another one of his ideas here. So up on screen right now is a crypto watch heirloom. So heirlooms, they're just completely aesthetic. They have no effect in game, so I think it would make some sense to just have a watch. I don't know if it would have any sort of melee effect and damage. Maybe it would somehow be like some sort of taser watch, I don't know. But I think you can get some really cool technology and like hologram looking stuff here. And having a watch as an heirloom, I personally think it's a cool idea, but it's perfectly fine if you disagree with that. But you know, rocking a watch that's completely unique to the heirlooms, I think it would be pretty aight. Joshua Colley said for Caustic, a beaker was something inside that he smacks people with. So Caustic, being a former employee of Humbert Labs, he used to work with pesticides. So I think it'd be really cool if he had like a vial of just some sort of gas or some sort of pesticides inside of it. Or maybe like this guy said, you could have a beaker, and you might think a beaker might break right away when you hit someone with it, you know, fair enough. But you know, maybe in the future they'll have a cool beaker that won't break, or maybe the glass will just be really thick on it. But I think having some sort of clear glass beaker with some really cool looking liquids inside, and maybe when you hit somebody with it, maybe it'll somehow leak out. I don't know. I think that would be an excellent heirloom. Our next idea comes from Tupanch. Crypto's heirloom should be his puzzle slash Rubik's Cube by itself or extended out to be a club slash baton. So Crypto's remote control for his drone, it's some sort of puzzle that he has to solve to use it. So that would be super cool if he could use his puzzle and turn it into some sort of melee weapon and use it as his heirloom. A bunch of people on that community post said stuff like this, or maybe somehow you could incorporate it to where Crypto literally uses his own drone as a sword. Like, it doesn't even have to be a real weapon, just an object to hit someone, as we learned with the Mirage heirloom. You know, his drone would only be available at times because, you know, he's gonna be using it sometimes. But I think somehow incorporating that puzzle to where you can see it all of the time, I think there's a lot of potential there with animations. So our next idea comes from IXSkill97IX. Revenant's heirloom ... Forge's robotic arm. I got so many stupid Revenant heirloom ideas. I mean, it's not stupid, it's just stupid funny. Like, rip Forge. That'd be so funny after Revenant murdered Forge in front of everybody to use his arm in the Apex games as an heirloom. Like, could you imagine that killer robot going around the Apex games with the arm of its kill? I think that's perfect, and I think that's a great way to remember, you know, the whole Forge and Revenant situation. Dito Furret said for Watson, a set of defibrillators attached to her pylons that she can attack people with. So that would be super cool to have defibrillators for Watson. You know, having the defibrillators hooked up to her backpack where there's a bunch of that electricity, and then just maybe even have electricity shooting around the defibrillators. If you don't know what defibrillators are, those things that doctors use to, like, you know, jumpstart people's hearts. There's one problem with this idea though. That's basically what Watson's heirloom is. But I thought that this was just such a cool idea and has so much potential, I had to talk about it. But I think having Watson run around the Apex games with some crazy electric defibrillators, like, I could totally see that, and I could totally see it being completely awesome. Now we have another heirloom concept from the very talented Amped Fludge on Reddit. So here you can see some sort of brass knuckles with gas canisters attached. I guess that would kind of make a decent bit of sense. You know, you punch them with the brass knuckles and then the gas canisters on the side, they would kind of like leak out gas. I think one of the thick boys at Caustic or Gibby deserves an heirloom next. You could also make a case for a couple of other legends, but I think when Caustic's heirloom comes out, if there's not gas flying everywhere when he's using it, I'm gonna be a little bit upset. You know, just a quick reminder, if you put an heirloom idea in the comments below, there is a chance it could be in a future video. Just, you know, reminding you of that. Paxlumbrium, he said Revenant's heirloom should be a human spine. Like, he just ripped a dude's spine out and beat him to death with it. I know this isn't physically possible, but I got so many stupid Revenant suggestions. Like, one person said that Revenant should be running around the Apex games with a human femur to beat people with. But, you know, going back to the spine, could you imagine Revenant running around with a spine? I think that would totally make sense, and of course you could have some really cool animations for this, like Revenant and some sort of bone heirloom. I am totally on board for that. Sir Frickboyoan said, if you've ever seen Iron Man 2, you know that one main villain that has 2 electric whips? This may be a good idea for Watson. And then after this, he kind of talked about some Mortal Kombat X stuff, but just focusing on this Iron Man 2 stuff, this man's is referencing Ivan Vanko. So, you know, when I originally watched Iron Man 2 when I was a wee little boy, you know, I mean, Ivan Vanko with his 2 electric whips, it seemed really cool, but looking at it now, like, electric whip guy versus Iron Man, that's like the lamest thing I've ever seen from Marvel. But could your Lady Watson possess this in the Apex games in 2020? Whatever Watson's heirloom is gonna be, I'm sure it's gonna be absolutely amazing, but having some sort of miniature electric whips, I think that'd be certainly cool. I know we kind of talked about this in a previous video, but like, you kind of have to worry about the range on things like whips, so it kind of have to be a short whip. So I don't think this is a too probable heirloom idea to come to the future of Apex, but I really like this idea. So me myself, I was just trying to think about a good Revenant heirloom idea. You know, throughout the videos that I've done like this, I've really never put my own input on what would be a cool heirloom in my opinion. So if you'd have happened to see my top 15 skins in Apex Legends video, you would know that Revenant's Unholy Beast skin is a reference to a Baphomet, basically a version of the devil that has a human body but goat legs and a goat head. So, you know, Revenant being the pretty much invincible boogeyman killer, I mean, he's basically the devil, I guess. guess. So now I was thinking, what is a cool heirloom that could kind of be devilish? So I put 2 and 2 together here. I think a Trident would be an excellent heirloom for Revenant. The whole thing with this is, though, you know, as the other ideas we have talked about before, like with Watson's whip, you kind of have to worry about range on this thing. Obviously, in game, it's not going to give you any extra range, but you can't have a giant melee object and have it have a super short melee distance. But, you know, just as a spine, I could totally see Revenant running around the Apex games with a Trident. It would totally match Revenant's colors, and if you get some sort of flames going on there or something, you could do a lot of things like that. I think this would be an excellent addition to Apex Legends. Now we're moving on to the last concept from Amped Fludge on Reddit. This is another sort of caustic brass knuckle heirloom idea, except this one, it has syringes on each side. So caustic's heirloom, maybe it doesn't have to be gas involved. It could possibly be scientifically involved with what he was doing at Humbert Labs. So we really don't know too much about what Caustic was doing over at Humbert Labs, other than he was doing something involving pesticides. But here with these needles, I think that is sick looking. I think Octane's heirloom is my favorite, and that one has needles on it. You know, so far the needle heirlooms have been successful, I guess. I think Caustic is really deserving of an heirloom, and maybe even put in the comments below which legend you think needs an heirloom next. Join the club of the Alarmix YouTube channel. All you have to do is hit that subscribe button. It would mean so much to me. We do a lot of different Apex Legends videos, anywhere from news to leaks to stuff just like this. And you know, if you want a chance to be in one of the future heirloom ideas videos, if I happen to do another, put an heirloom idea in the comments below. And that'll be about it for me, the Alarmix. I'll see you guys later.